Welcome to Our Community. Susie Thomas with you this morning, welcoming Nate Christofferson from the Sold Out team at Pregnancy Choices. Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing?
And we are so excited to have Jason Burt join us with Silver Ring Thing. Good morning, Jason.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing great, and thank you so much for being able to sit in with us. First of all, let's find out a little bit about Sold Out. Nate, tell us, you've been here before. We know it's a really cool program that you've got going into the schools, but give us a refresher.
Yeah, basically Sold Out is a ministry of pregnancy choices. We are a team of about 4 people. We have 3 presenters and 1 administrator, and we go into schools all over Stark County. We're in about 35, actually I believe 36 schools now. And we teach a 4-day program on relationships, and we talk about sex, we talk about relationships, healthy and unhealthy, relational abuse, STDs. We talk about all that stuff with teenagers from 6th grade on up to seniors in high school.
Really cool. Somehow you found out about the Silver Ring Thing and managed to bring them to our town. So tell us a little bit about how that relationship got started.
Yeah, we're really excited about hosting them in about a month. My CEO, Jill Taylor, she knows them through a mutual friend. And I believe that they were a part of, they were a part of hosting them about 5 years ago or so. And so she knew about the ministry and everything that they're about, and their vision and ministry goes really closely in hand with what we love to do at Sold Out. The really neat thing is they are able to bring the gospel, the message of the gospel into what they do, which, of course, being in the schools, we're not able to directly, preach the gospel. So we're really excited about that connection.
So, Jason, you are with Silver Ring Thing.
Yes, ma'am.
And you've been with them for how long, Jason?
I have been with Silver Ring Thing now just over 14 years,
Oh, my
actually.
goodness. Very cool.
Yes.
And how long has Silver Ring Thing been making the rounds across the country?
So it started in 1995, but it was really just kind of a local-based organization based out of Yuma, Arizona. It was really around early 2000s, early 2001, 2002, when things really started to take off, growing from a kind of just a local regional thing to more of a national organization and ministry.
And Nate, when you said that it's in about a month, exactly when will that be?
March 21st, Wednesday.
And where?
It's going to be at New Point Church in Canton.
Okay.
From 7 to 9 p.m.
Now, I've seen that it's a free event, and it's hip-hop and sketches and music and almost a concert-style presentation. Is that a fair assessment, Jason?
Yeah, so the event is it's very multimedia driven. So there's a lot of videos and music and testimonies. I would say a big strength of it is a lot of it is presented and done by a peer level team. So we've got 12 young guys and girls that are recruited from all over the country that are basically sharing their lives and their testimonies just as a real living example for their peers. And so coming from all different walks of life and background and experience, but basically all saying that, hey, no matter what you've done, no matter what even your past looks like, you can still live this out beginning today. And so, but yeah, there's a lot of lighting and video and fun and music and dance and everything like that to really kind of reach students right where they are.
And the venue's going to be great. New Point can handle all of those things. It will be so, so good. Would you say that this is something that you bring your Christian friends or all your friends? Who are you aiming for?
Well, I would definitely encourage to bring whoever you can. There is a gospel presentation, there is a faith-based message to it, but we always have our mind and our eye on that either unchurched or underchurched kid. Those who are on the fringes or those who are maybe even far away. So, everything that we do is just very authentic. It's very real, and so I think that whether you're coming from a church background or not, we're not going to be speaking at you. We're talking with you, and so I think that they'll feel like received and accepted and loved, and ultimately maybe get a vision for their lives that they're just not hearing anywhere in the culture today.
Yes. You mentioned that this is about second chances.
That's right.
Talk about that.
Yeah, so a big part of our message is understanding that there are going to be students in that audience that may have come from broken backgrounds. Maybe they could even be victims of abuse or neglect, or those who've just made some poor choices along the way. And so a big part of our message is one of grace and forgiveness. That no matter what you've done, no matter how far you've gone, it's never too late to start over and to live differently from this day forward. So certainly we're trying to encourage those who are on that path of purity to continue on that journey. But those who feel like, man, I've gone too far, there's no hope for me, we're trying to tell them that the exact opposite is true. There is still so much hope for you, and you can be restored and renewed, forgiven, and begin to live different.
How is the message of purity received among members of this generation?
I think it depends on who's presenting it to them. Sometimes, I think teens. We live in this. They're talking about this Gen Z culture. The teenagers that are growing up today who receive truth not as like an absolute truth, but we're in this post-truth culture where a lot of it has to do with their feelings or their beliefs or what they see to be true in someone else's life. And so, with our event, what we have seen is that students that when you come to them authentically, when you come to them just real and honest and just say, hey, this is my life, this is how I'm living this out, I think they're very open to it. When you come to them and like kind of preaching at them or kind of standing above them as opposed to walking with them, it's not received as well. But when they see it lived out, it's hard to deny. You can't deny someone else's testimony. And so when you see someone else who can say, listen, I had made some choices and made some mistakes, or maybe I've been walking this walk, but I have a hope and a joy about the future, about living out God's plan for my life. They receive that and they go, oh, that's actually pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. I've got to know, Nate, how long ago did you plan to bring them in? Has this been in the works for some time?
This has been in the works since, sometime last summer. I think we started the conversation. I can't remember when we actually nailed down the date and everything, but it's been a good probably 8 months, 6 to 8 months, I'm guessing.
Well, I ask because it's so providential that you would be coming. Jason, I don't know how much you know about our area, but you're coming to a community that has been dealing the past year with an inordinate number of teen suicide and some really serious things, some really serious matters going on in the schools. And I don't know how you prep for something like that, but you're coming to an area that's very hungry, very thirsty for what you have. Does that change how you get ready for things?
Well, sure. I mean, certainly we approach every event with just very thoughtful prayer and just humility of realizing, it's an incredible way that God has even given just to present the gospel and to give that message of hope and forgiveness and restoration. And, and what Canton community and what several communities around the country are dealing with a lot of times too is there's a real severe brokenness in this generation. There's a lot of depression. There's a lot of anxiety. They're titling the Gen Z as the screenagers, those who are growing up and always in front of media, in front of screens, and how really our social stuff has actually caused more fragmentation. That people aren't in real relationships and they don't have much of a vision for who they are created in the image of God and and that God loves them and that they have an intrinsic worth just in the fact that He created them with a purpose instead of finding your worth in an online affirmation or from a guy or from a girl. So, I think that if anything, our desire is always just to communicate that hope and that love and that God created you with a purpose, for a purpose, and that you can live out your life to bring Him honor and glory, in terms of your purity, your sexuality, and you don't have to cave into just the garbage of the culture.
Mm-hmm. I'm seeing so many things and reading so many things about this Gen Z generation. For one thing, that they're way more pro-life than their parents have been. And that they also, at some point they might start to question what they've been told. Because what does it say to a child when a mother rushes her off to get her a birth control prescription? That says, it's okay, just don't get pregnant. How do they receive that from parents? Because you tend to be told to trust that your parents know what's best and you should listen to them when they're getting maybe some not that great of advice. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I think the hypocrisy in that, of I think for a while you had some of the parents that kind of took a back seat and just were kind of allowing kids to go their own way and let them kind of choose their own course, not realizing that not parenting. I think there was this backlash to where parents were trying to be friends and trying to be cool and trying to fit in, as opposed to stepping in and doing really what the Bible, going all the way back to Deuteronomy, commands us to do, to impress the commandments upon our children, to talk about them when we lie down and when we get up, when we're on the road, when we get home. I mean, this idea of like parents like kind of raising their children and teaching them truth. And so there is that hypocrisy there where kids, I think, there's a backlash of saying, wait a minute. So on the one hand, you're telling me it's okay, do whatever I want, but then at the same time, you're trying to push morality to do this or do that. And so, I think that teenagers today, they're much more equipped with information. They're much more adept at knowing how to discover things that are going on around them. There's a lot of great things that are going on, and there's a lot of struggles that they're facing too. Like I said, especially in relation just to that anxiety and depression and frustration, that they're lonely. A lot of loneliness.
Isn't that something? They've got all this communication technology, and yet we're raising a lonely generation.
Yeah.
So is this program for parents too, would you say?
Absolutely. Yeah. In fact, we do a separate parent session. So when this program starts at 7 p.m., and in a separate room, we actually have a parent session that goes from about 7 to 7:45 or so. And that's really just to really equip and empower parents on what's going on in the culture and how they need to be engaged. Despite what parents think, they still can be and are the leading voice in their kids' sexual decision-making. But that's only as long as they're present. Because today, if you're not present, if you have an open conversation with your kids, if they're not looking to you for guidance and truth, they're just going to Google it. That's what they're talking about. Everything just comes down to, I got a question, I'm going to ask Google, instead of saying, like, I'm going to go to mom and dad. So if you have that's part of what we're trying to do, is foster that communication, that engagement, not as a one-time discussion, but an ongoing dialogue throughout many, many years. And we're trying to empower parents in doing that, because if not, their kids are going to get educated elsewhere, and they're going to go elsewhere to find it.
Are there some places that are conducive to carry on those kinds of conversations? How important is the family dinner table? I'm thinking, what about 9 holes of golf? Driving somebody, don't let them get their driver's license too soon, so they still need you to drop them off places, and you've got a captive audience there in the car. Those are 3 that come to mind. Are there places where those conversations are more easily and flowing freely than others?
Sure. I think you hit several of them nail right on the head. I think it's just the times where you're kind of stuck together no matter what, and to just see that as an opportunity to foster conversation. Sadly, too many families don't have dinners together. They don't have meals together. But you are shuttling your kids around a lot. A lot of times we are just overbooked and overbusy as parents, whether it be through sports or academics or whatever it might be. And so maybe seize those opportunities as you're driving to and from places, just to kind of highlight what's going on that day. And just, again, we always say that parents, you want your kids to see you kind of as their fact checker, as their trusted resource, that as questions come up, are you going to be both approachable and unshockable? Are you going to allow them the free space to share whatever's going on in their life and not face any backlash from you, because if they know that you're a safe place, then they'll come to you,
So you're saying that deep down, kids really do want to have parents. They really want to be able to trust a parent and go to a parent, as much as they might roll their eyes at the thought of, doing so.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of those surveys ultimately say, is that, when they're surveyed anonymously, teens would still rate their parents as the leading influence. And so, though we don't go and say, hey, mom and dad, thanks for all these wonderful conversations, kids don't do that naturally. But deep down, I think that they want to hear from someone that they know ultimately loves them and has their best interest in mind. Because a lot of times what you're hearing online is neutral, or you're hearing from friends and maybe biased. But hopefully when you hear from someone who really has your best interest and who loves you and who's been there for you, hopefully you can receive that. And it may not always be glowing praises, but I believe that it sinks in, it gets there.
Yeah. I can remember saying to my kids when they were teenagers, here, I've got an advantage because I've been your age and I've been my age. So I get to see this from both sides of it. We need to take a very short break, but we're visiting with Jason Burt from the Silver Ring Thing and Nate Christofferson from Sold Out. You're listening to Our Community.